Ruth Ann Ruppert. Ruth Ann Ruppert was an expert hiker who had recently celebrated the new millennium climbing the Argentine Peak in Colorado. In the past, Ruppert had also climbed Mount Aconcagua, Half Dome, and even Kilimanjaro with a frozen foot. Unfortunately, the 49-year-old would make the news when she disappeared amidst the immensity of Yosemite National Park in August of 2000. Ruth Ann Ruppert had planned to join a group hike at Yosemite National Park, and even left her home in Florida to participate in what should have been an easy adventure for the experienced hiker. One of Ruppert's eyes was a prosthetic, and on the morning of August 14th, she was frustrated to realize that she had an infection in her good eye. The hiker required medical care and went to the Yosemite Medical Clinic in the Curry Village area around noon. The delay caused her to miss the group hike, as the planned route was to go from Yosemite Falls to the Foresta area. It is assumed that Ruppert decided to still go on the ride on her own. Ruppert left by herself sometime in the afternoon without telling anyone about her plans. She was never seen again. The subsequent investigation found that Ruppert had rented a cabin in Curry Village, which is where she was last heard of. Unlike the veteran mountaineer that she was, it appeared as though she'd unwittingly left her stock of supplies behind. Her family vehemently denied that she would have ever left them, or that she had any intentions to harm herself. The search operation didn't find any clues about her whereabouts, nor were her belongings recovered. It wasn't until roughly a decade later that Ruppert's backpack was unearthed in Fireplace Creek, about 8 miles from where she was last seen in Curry Village. The backpack was stuck in a drainage area, but did not offer any clues about her whereabouts. Ruth Ann Ruppert's disappearance remains a mystery to this day. Stacy Ann Arras. Young Stacy Ann Arras was on a guided mule-riding trip through Yosemite National Park with her dad and several others when the 14-year-old told her father she would take some pictures. The group had just arrived at Sunrise High Sierra Camp, the furthest set of cabins in the area, and as she left the group, it would be the last time she was ever seen. On July 17th, 1981, Stacy Ann Arras and the people with her had just finished a ride when she felt like exploring the surroundings while the others rested. Arras wanted to take pictures of the nearby lakes, and the only person who agreed to go with her was a 77-year-old man who walked beside her for a while before stopping to rest. When the man noticed that the girl was not returning, he started to ask hikers coming from the direction she'd taken if they'd seen her, but no one had. A massive search operation was launched shortly after, with roughly 100 people involved, 3 helicopters, and 8 teams of trained dogs. The search continued for days, but no trace of Arras was ever found. According to Yosemite spokeswoman Linda Abbott, the last conversation the girl had with her father was about footwear. Apparently, the girl was wearing thongs until her father advised her to wear hiking boots if she planned to walk around. Abbott remarked, quote, "If she'd planned on walking off, she wouldn't have gone off in thongs." In addition, the park's officials also remarked that the girl had family and school troubles, and that she missed her boyfriend. Hope began to fade after days of combing the wilderness, and a week later, Service Ranger Bob Johnson summed up the status of the mission, quote, "Nothing significant found." Thelma Pauline Polly Melton. At 58 years old, Thelma Pauline Melton, or Polly, was no stranger to the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina. With her husband and friends, she would spend several months every year at the base of the mountain she loved so dearly. But in September of 1981, she would vanish forever while on a casual hike with a couple of friends. Pauline Melton loved hiking in the mountains and didn't have any trouble doing it despite being a heavy smoker. In fact, she did so regularly and with ease. For many years, she'd made her home at the base of the Smoky Mountains and was well known in the community. What's more, she used to volunteer at a senior home in the area and visited them almost every day. However, in September of 1981, her mother had recently passed, and her third husband had fallen ill. Then, on the 25th, Melton went on a hike with 2 friends and took a path that was signaled as easy. According to the 2 women who were with her, Melton then sped up and got ahead of them, but not too far away. Still, they suddenly lost sight of her just over a knoll. When her friends reached the spot where they expected to see her, Melton was not there. They then made their way back to the campsite, but she was nowhere to be seen. There's been much speculation about Melton's disappearance, but some believe that she planned to go away, perhaps with a lover, and start a new life. The rumors stemmed from her pastor suspecting that she was having an affair, as the day before her disappearance, she asked to use the phone at the residency where she volunteered, and had never done so in all the years that she frequented the place. Months later, a check was cashed in Melton's name in Alabama, but the police were never able to confirm if it was her signature. Michael Fisseri. Michael Allen Fisseri was an experienced backpacker and mountaineer who once crawled his way back to civilization after he broke his ankle in Yosemite. Consequently, when he went for a hike in Yosemite National Park on June 15, 2005, and failed to return home after a few days, his family knew something was wrong. From his youth, the then 51-year-old man was passionate about extreme sports and enjoyed surfing and cycling, but was particularly into hiking. Even for experienced hikers like Fisseri, the Yosemite National Park does not recommend hiking alone. Still, he decided to visit the north side of Hetch Hetchy Reservoir on his own, following a route that would take him to Rancheria Falls, Telltale Mountain, Lake Vernon, and through Beehive before returning to the starting point. To make matters worse, the area Fisseri chose was hardly visited, as it's not among the most popular spots in the park. Still, Fisseri always counted on his extraordinary photographic memory to help him face the wilderness. It was unlikely for him to get lost, and he was also in excellent physical condition. However, Fisseri did have a tendency to overestimate the distance he could cover in a single day, even as he had been to the area several times and was reasonably familiar with it. Perhaps overconfident, he probably changed his mind at some point and took the Pacific Crest Trail towards Telltale Mountain, a known rocky and treacherous path. Days later, the adventurer failed to return after his permit expired, and his family reached out to the authorities. A thorough search operation that even involved the Marines was launched, but they could only find Fisseri's bag with a map, a water bottle, and a camera. There was no trace of him, and his whereabouts remain a mystery after all these years. Paul Braxton Fugate. On January 13, 1980, Ranger Paul Fugate took a break from his job. The 41-year-old officer was working at the visitor center in the Chiricahua National Monument in southeastern Arizona. At around 2 p.m., Fugate left the building and went for a hike along the park trail. He was never seen again. The last person who saw Paul Fugate was a coworker. Dressed in his uniform, Fugate was heading down the trailhead when he told his colleague that they could start closing duties without him if he wasn't back by 4:30 p.m. However, the employees still found it unusual when he didn't return to close the park. Fugate was the only permanent staff member there, and it was unlikely that he would leave the rest of the seasonal employees to close down. In an ironic twist of fate, Fugate was also the expert when it came to search and rescue operations at the park. The Cochise County Sheriff's Department and the National Park Service would then have to manage without his expertise. Chiricahua is 17 square miles of rugged terrain, full of treacherous canyons and wildlands, and despite all the efforts, the search and rescue teams didn't find any clues about the ranger's whereabouts. A reward was eventually offered in exchange for information about Fugate. By now, investigators were suspecting foul play, and a formal missing person case was opened. Though the National Park Service listed Fugate as a missing person, his wife was told that they believed he had walked off the job and thus terminated. leaving her without his pension or other benefits. Moreover, they demanded that she repay them the roughly $7,000 they'd given her during the time he'd been gone. However, the case was revived 5 years later, and the presumed widow won. Decades later, the reward fund grew considerably, from $20,000 to $60,000, but the case remains cold. Thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and leave us a comment below. And for more fascinating stories, don't forget to subscribe to all of our Dark Documentaries channels and hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest content. Stay tuned.